Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast. Welcome back to the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. It is Monday, February 24th. This is episode 174. Don Harris, Chuck McTinnick, Matt Roy, Bob Gambert, Javier, I don't know your last name, Gomez. We have two, so I mess it up all the time. My bad. We have two. I have to very specifically email the right one every day. So I should probably know which one's which. But
the guy that goes to Costco.
Yeah, the guy that gets his clothes at Costco.
California Costco.
They got good stuff over there, let me tell you. As always, subscribe to the YouTube channel, both News 4 and Fox SA. Download, rate, review the podcast if you're so inclined. Got a lot. Actually, we got one thing to talk about today, really, but there's a lot of layers to this. Some more season from hell for the Spurs goes on. We got some more news over the weekend of Coach Pop now going to be out for the rest of the season, according to ESPN reporter Shams Charania. We'll just start right there. No trivia today. We'll just get right into that. He suffered the mild stroke back in November, and since then it's been a little, touch and go with status of him, if there's a timeline and whatnot. First and foremost, I want to say this is all about his health. Like that's period, end of sentence. He means a lot to the city. He's the winningest coach of all time. He means a lot to the basketball world. That is first and foremost the most important thing is Pop's health, and hopefully he can live a long and healthy life after basketball with his grandkids, with his kids, maybe see his great grandkids one day. And that is truly the most important thing. Period, end of sentence, end of paragraph. What was your guys' first initial thoughts when you saw Shams tweet that out on and report it on ESPN on Saturday?
I don't know. You got to process sometimes some of Shams's report, and you have to really. He's very good at using certain words that sometimes give him an out if he's wrong, and he's been proven to be wrong over the course of time in some things. He used words like not expected to return and operating under the premise that Pop will not return. He did not say he will not return, right?
Yeah,
so,
not expected to return.
Yeah, so I don't know that that's anything new for some. I think, R.C. Buford, I think in France said we expect him back. Pop said
he said we don't know when it'll be, but we expect him back.
Yeah,
was the quote.
And I've heard others say this season. I've heard others say, Pop put out the statement about nobody wants to see me back on the court faster. Sam Amick reported in New York that he was on his way, that he would return after the New York trip. So I don't know that there's anything really new other than Shams was on national TV and people read between the lines to assume that this was a definitive statement that Pop will not be back this season and that his future to ever return is in question. And I believe those two things to be true, but he didn't say those two things.
I think it was the latter that got it, or that got the reaction, not that he won't return this season, because I think if you read between the lines over the last 5 months, you could kind of see the writing on the wall there, that they have been alluding to maybe him not returning this season. But the latter part of saying his future is uncertain was, I think, what triggered a lot of people into thinking, oh no, Pop is done.
Yeah.
Chuck, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I was surprised by the timing, right? And then Shams was the Lone Ranger on this particular story and then immediately went on network TV to sort of bring the story to life. But, I think we've reported all along on the Fox side that at the very beginning of this, there were some inside the organization and those that we talked to around the situation. There were more than one that believed that Pop had coached his last game at the time. So, whether that ends up being true or not, obviously we don't know. But to me, there was nothing substantially new other than the guy saying it obviously has a pretty big bullhorn.
Yeah, I mean, and if Pop was to be done, okay, like he's the oldest coach in the NBA by 5 years. He passed Jerry Sloan in 2020. Hubie Brown in 2020 for the oldest person to ever coach an NBA game. And he is now 76. That was when he was 71. So he's by far the oldest coach to ever coach an NBA game in NBA history. He is by far, or not by far, but the winningest coach in NBA history. He has 170 postseason wins in NBA. I mean, which is like third in NBA history. The accolades go on, and I don't think any of us would be surprised if he didn't coach in another NBA game. The timing of it and hearing it instead of thinking it, actually hearing it from someone who's reporting that and it becoming closer to a reality might be the more jarring thing.
Depends on, where he's getting his information, who he's getting it from. We know the Spurs don't give up anything. So is this an agent talking? Is this a player talking? I talked to 2 former players today. One believes he's coached his last game. The other believes it's still 50-50, depending on how his rehab goes this summer. Everybody has an opinion. Nobody knows for sure. And nobody knows the Spurs' motives for saying what they say when they say it. And, everybody's got opinions. I feel like maybe they left the door open because that's what he wanted. He wanted to see, can I do this? And why, with everything that he's done for the organization, why would you tell a guy 5 months ago, you're done, that's it, or make an announcement, or let's see how when he says I'm coming back, then the team says rehabbing with the intention of returning, because you want him to have that nugget, that carrot out there for his rehab. Maybe they've gotten to a point where he realizes, okay, it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to do this. I don't know, but those are some of the things that could possibly be it.
I mean, the lack of transparency around this, I guess, is what's chided some people, and the lack of a timeline given. I mean, from the day that this happened, basically what happened was they gave a statement afterwards. This is what we've heard from the Spurs organization or from Pop. They gave a statement immediately afterwards. There was a press conference with Brian Wright 11 days after the stroke. Then the next thing we heard was from Pop on December 18th, saying he intends to return to the sidelines. And then January 22nd, I believe it was, in Paris, RC said, we don't know when that will be, but we expect him back. Even now, after this report, we haven't gotten a statement confirming this from the Spurs. So, Chuck, what do you make of all that information?
I think we talked about this at the very beginning when this story all broke, right? Because of the lack of transparency between the organization and just simply telling everybody how Pop is. I think it's left everybody to wonder what exactly is going on, what the power dynamic is, what it looks like immediately, what it looks like going forward. I don't know what has changed in these last several months since the initial press statement came out. But, again, it's not surprising, I guess, in a lot of ways. I mean, but surprising in other ways in that you would think that there would be something more tangible in terms of where he's at with his health and what this looks like in a broader scope other than he's just in rehab.
And Don, you would know this better than I would. Pop means so much to the city, so much to the organization, so much to the NBA family. Wouldn't the Spurs want to almost rest assured or tell people that he's okay? Yeah, thank you. Reassure people that he's okay. We're just trying to do what's best for his health.
Well, I think that's kind of what they've said over time was he's okay. He's rehabbing. The updates that I've gotten were he's progressing. He's attacking his rehab as you would expect him to do. He's improving. He's had a couple of really good weeks. This was about 2 months ago. He's had a really good 3 weeks, and that was back when RC was going to Paris and saying that he expected him back. And some of us interpreted it as this season. I was told that it was expected this season, and I don't know if that was misleading on purpose. Maybe things have changed. I mean, there's so much speculation, and it's such a high-profile job, right? But it's also a very private, deeply personal health issue. And so, we all want to know. We all want to know if he's coaching this year. We all want to know if he's coaching next year, all of that. But maybe no one knows.
But with so much vagueness comes speculation, right? Like
right.
like you're almost asking people
Sure.
to speculate when you be as vague as the organization has been with something like this, or with other things in the past. It's not just this situation.
What if they come out a month ago and say he's done, he's never going to coach again, and then he gets stronger and gets better and changes his mind? What if they say he's done or he's going to coach again, he's rehabbing, he's going to come back this season? Oops, maybe next season it's not going as well, and then he gets worse. I mean, it's fluid, and I think there's a chance. My personal gut feeling is that he's probably coached his last game. But I also believe that there is a chance that he's giving himself a shot at getting stronger in rehab throughout the summer and maybe return. I don't know.
You guys would both know this better than I would, since you've been covering the team for so long. Hasn't there been talks of him retiring before now anyway? Like, wasn't there talks 2020 before that Olympic run that he might retire and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, he said
many times,
jokingly, I think, probably at the time, when Tim retires, I'm retiring. But, things change. You grow and you decide that you love it maybe more than you thought, and you like the challenges of maybe having to coach a team without a Tim Duncan. But, maybe it's not totally fair to hang all of this on the Spurs, right? It's not like Pop has been super out there with putting his personal life, good, bad, or indifferent, in the public specter. In fact, he's run away from that and made sure that everybody stayed as far away from the personal stuff or his private life, from putting all that stuff out there, than anybody I can remember. He's done probably as good a job separating the celebrity coach from personal life than anybody I think I've ever seen in my entire life. Because it's not like they tried to hide when Sean Elliott was going through the kidney transplant thing. They called a press conference. I think it was a surprise to everybody, but they were really open with that. But part of that was because Sean has never hidden, what was going on pretty much from his personal life, and, what he did on the basketball court. And Sean, the human being, didn't mind sharing those kind of moments. So, I think it's a different dynamic this go around. I mean, it's par for the course in terms of who Pop has been to this point to suppress or to withhold what is actually going on in his personal life, especially when you're talking about something as sensitive as something like this.
Don't you think like we can make the argument that San Antonio needs to know he's Gregg Popovich, he's ours.
Sure.
But yet, if you know Pop, you know that Pop's first line would be, "This is nobody's damn business but mine."
Right.
Right. And so he's not going to see our side of, "Hey, Pop, we need to know. San Antonio needs to know."
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to see that. From his side is, "This is my house, my damn business. It's none of yours. We're not telling you anything." And I'm sure, I bet you $100 that the Spurs may have gone to him and say, "Pop, what do you want to say?" And he probably says, "I don't want to say anything." And they probably say, "Pop, we got to put out some sort of statement." "No, we don't." Then they twist his arm and he finally puts out that one statement. But, I know Pop, and I know he doesn't want any attention. He doesn't want this to be a big deal. He doesn't see himself the way the rest of the world sees him. He sees this as, "I'm a basketball coach. What are you guys making a fuss of this for? Why is this on ESPN? Nobody cares."
Wasn't there three years ago or so when I thought I remembered this narrative that Coach Pop was getting a little tired, for lack of a better term, but he was more reinvigorated by this younger team, by such a young.
Teaching.
He loves teaching kids. He loves teaching kids, for lack of a better term.
And I've joked about this with other media members, and at his Hall of Fame press conference, he mentioned it, and I asked him about it in Springfield. Do not underestimate when people say, "Pop, why do you keep doing this?" And he jokes. He says, "The money." He ain't joking. He ain't joking, and he'll tell you that. The guy makes $17 million a year. He flies on private jets, stays in Ritz-Carlton hotels, charges expensive wine back to the team, and he's got this program on cruise control for the last 10 years. He's set up a program where he doesn't scout games. He doesn't he trusts RC and Brian in the front office. He trusts Mitch and the coaching staff. He's got a really good gig.
Fair enough. Bob?
Well, first of all, Tom from business is in the house.
Shout out
Well,
Tom
Tom.
Guerrero.
Hi, Tom.
And he says Pop needs to retire and enjoy life. Bring in Steve Kerr.
We'll get to that in a second, Tom.
All right.
I got that at the end.
Mike Ramon says, thanks, Pop. It's time to take care of your health and enjoy retirement. Hanover Fist, funny username, says, at this point, that's the point of having Pop come. What's the point of having Pop come back anyways? Let Mitch be the tank commander for the rest of the season. And then just one more from Trevor. He says, if, and it's a big if, Pop is done, I would first be very sad. Then I would hope the Spurs would at least reach out to Becky Hammond if she's interested.
Getting to that here in a little bit as well. Going to address the potential future after we hear from Mitch Johnson. So I want to bring up Mitch here. He was asked about this a little bit earlier. I think it was a pregame yesterday before the Hornets game. So let's hear from Mitch on the Pop situation.
Look, we've talked about from when this first happened, just that Pop's health is the priority and that I would be coaching when he was away. And I have not asked for anything other than the support that I've gotten, and it's been great. So at this point, everything remains the same.
I mean, it's also apparent that Pop, even though he is away from the team, is very hands-on with the team still calling Chris Paul after games, still, as Mitch has said, either talking to him or cussing him out in certain situations. At this point, though, guys, won't he be involved like forever? Like as long as Pop, even if he isn't the head coach anymore, won't he always be calling whoever the head coach is to impart his wisdom or be involved in the organization in some form or fashion?
If Pop is done coaching, I would think he's Pat Riley. I think he's just on the fifth row.
Well, he's the president of the team right now anyway, isn't he?
That doesn't change. I think he keeps that title, and I think he hires the next coach, and I think he manages whoever the next coach is and manages Brian Wright. I think he becomes the president of the team and becomes Pat Riley. What Pat Riley does for Miami.
It's hard to say, right? Because again, I mean, Pop's not even made a public appearance. We don't know what kind of shape he's in completely. Obviously he's making progress. Obviously he is calling people, calling players, calling people within the organization. So we know that much, but I don't know. I just hate to speculate on all of this because, we really don't know at this point. But you have to think that, even if what he suffered is too strenuous to return to the sideline, there's too much corporate knowledge, as he would say, that he has that wouldn't be of some value, no matter what the situation is, from even starting today, right? So what is that going to look like 6 months from now or a year from now or 6 days from now? I don't know.
Couldn't this also be because they're hopelessly out of this at this point? You have no Wemby anymore. You're 55 games into a season. You're 24-31. You're 12th in the West. You're 3.5 games back of just a play-in. What's the point of coming back and possibly putting more stress on yourself while you're still rehabbing, even if you are healthy enough to come back? Wouldn't this be different if they were 35-20? As opposed to 24-31.
I think you have to ask the very fair question. If they were in the hunt, would it be different? I don't know, right? Because we don't know, like Chuck says, we don't know what the situation of his health is. But it's a fair question that a playoff series or a play-in would be very valuable to a bunch of young guys. And Pop may have wanted to be a part of that. With that no longer looking like it's going to be the case, did that change the thinking here? It could have, or It's just he was never going to come back, and he's not going to come back ever. And it's a health thing, and it's completely unrelated. But it's worth asking that question.
I find it hard to believe that it's a coincidence that Wemby goes out for the season. The timing of it. I mean, Wemby goes out for the season on Thursday and then pops out for the season on Saturday.
The timing does, I guess, you could ask those questions, but I freely admit I don't know Pop well, but I would assume that if he was ready to come back at any time, regardless of the circumstances, because, I mean, they're 2 games out where they were before last night. I didn't see what everybody else
They're 3.5 games out of the 10 now.
Okay, there you go. So I don't know that Pop would ever run from a fight or from some competition, right? And it's part of the whole dynamic of coaching a younger team, right? You want to see if they can overcome and make strides or make gains. I bet there would be a part of him that even without Victor, that would be a challenge to see if you could flip this thing. So I would not make that leap personally, although I can understand why somebody would.
And they've never been one to let circumstances affect what they do, like with an injured player, like, oh, this is a huge game. He's probably ready, but he's not going to play tonight. We don't care how big a game it is. They've always never let the circumstances dictate when or what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Although they've been masterful at tanking without admitting it.
I mean, the ping pong balls certainly like them.
And in 97 and then this last year, and
well, it's hard to know. I mean, again, is it masterful tanking, or is it the team's just not very good as it stands here right now?
You got a lot of chances at ping pong balls.
So, you're going to have a lot of chances, right?
Like I said,
there are a lot
of
guys that sat out with back tightness.
Yeah, and we might see that a lot more. We'll see if De'Aaron Fox gets his finger surgery within the next couple of weeks. I think personally, this is a aside because I wasn't going to talk about this much today, but I think that Fox will play one home game just to play a home game with the Spurs this season, which he hasn't done yet, and then possibly get the finger surgery after that, because that would suck to be traded to a team and literally never play a home game for them until next season.
Well, I mean, kudos to him to be playing through what he's playing, especially on his shooting hand. I can't imagine how unfun that is.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's not his index finger. I mean, the pinky is at least a little bit easier.
But still, man, balls still weigh a certain amount, and they're still have a certain circumference, man.
I agree.
So, I mean, kudos to him, and I hope that he's doing this for all the right reasons. Right? They're right there.
Yeah.
This playing spot with the amount of games that are left is there to be taken.
Not if they get manhandled the way they did last night. That's for sure.
Well, that was a disappointment for sure, especially the damn fourth quarter.
Yeah, in the end of the third. I wanted to also talk about this season has been, like I said at the top, kind of the season from hell. You have the Pop stuff, you have the Wemby stuff, now you have more Pop stuff, you have the France games, you have the fires in LA that disrupted stuff. I mean, it's just been a weird season, a bad season, a rough season, but a weird season nonetheless. And this is what Coach Mitch Johnson had to say about that yesterday as well.
And you look at our season, and there's been, Pop, and then there was New York, and then there was LA Fires, and then there was Paris, and then there was acquiring De'Aaron Fox, and then there was Victor's injury. There's been a lot. There's been some good. There's been some hard adversity, and the guys have been great, and they make it fun to work, and they make it fun to navigate challenges. And we don't always know the challenges that are ahead of us. There's been some really unique challenges this year, but every year has challenges, and the players and the rest of the organization, but the players have really made it rewarding to try to work with and fight through some of this stuff.
Can you guys remember a season that's been quite this odd, covering them for the last 30-ish years for both of you?
COVID was a weird year. Remind me, what happened in New York? He said New York, LA Fires, acquiring De'Aaron Fox. These things are out of
I don't remember about the New York one.
I think Wemby had an awesome game on Christmas Day.
Christmas Day.
But was there a challenge with New York? Was there a
Did Wemby lose it? Did Wemby lose at chess?
Did they get kicked out of their hotel with a fire alarm or
I
something?
don't know about that one.
I don't know what he was referring to with New York. I think COVID was the only other weird season. There's been lockout seasons. There's been lockout where you didn't have training camp season. But I don't know. I can't remember a season where you had something like your star player and your head coach going through not just injuries, but the kinds of issues,
Significant issues
they're dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, there was the Sean Elliott when they had to go through all that. 99 was weird because it was a shortened season and they compressed 50 games into a very short time frame, and there were back-to-back-to-back games that night. Some of them include travel. And, I think there are going to be challenges for every team every single year. But this has been extraordinary, yes, on many levels.
Yeah, I can't think of something where your star player, your head coach go out and in this fashion with these kinds of issues. And then you still have to operate. You have the De'Aaron Fox trade that comes in. He hasn't played a home game yet, and he's been on the road for basically a little over a month now, and he won't play a home game for over a month and a half. So you just have weird quirks in a season that just add up, I guess.
Yeah, and kudos to Mitch Johnson for how he's navigated. Yeah. I mean, the guy hasn't wavered. I mean, even when he's talking about it, he seems like a razor to me.
He's got 4 kids too.
Also, shout out to our photographer Colton, who says if the Spurs are having a season from hell, what are the Mavs having? You guys are in the playoffs right now, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Self-inflicted.
Yeah, that's not even comparable. Also, Luka did a great job the other night. 30 points for the Lakers. I know Javi's pretty excited about that.
Didn't hear anything about that. Jeez, it was like I wasn't even looking for anything Lakers related on my Twitter feed. That's all I got.
I want to talk about if Pop is done, and we're not saying he is, we're not saying he isn't. Who would be the next head coach? Who would you guys want to see as the next head coach of the San Antonio Spurs? So Mitch Johnson obviously seems to be the leader in the clubhouse. I think most people would think, since he has been on the roster and on the coaching staff, he was kind of hand selected of the assistant coaches to be the heir apparent, at least this season. So Don, I'll start with you. Do you think Mitch Johnson has done a well enough job to lead this team into the future?
Yes. Do I think he's going to be the next head coach? No. He's done a fantastic job. He's done a great job. He's qualified, could easily be the head coach. You're talking about the San Antonio Spurs, and I'll use a baseball thing.
Oh God.
Chris Del Conte, when talking about hiring Schlossnagle from A&M, this is a guy who the day before, right, lost in the national championship game. Del Conte said, as an AD, you have a responsibility to go after the guy at the top of your list who's you can't get, but you have to ask. You're not going to get him. You're not going to get the second guy. Then there's a list of the guys you think are gettable, and you go down that list, and you hope you never get to the third list, which is your backup list. And he said, I know I could not get Jim Schlossnagle, but
wink.
But I had to have him tell me no to my face. I knew him from TCU, whatever. So he went and said, you're going to have to tell me no to my face. And of course he didn't tell him no.
That begs the question, what list was Jerry Jones on when he hired Schottenheimer?
I don't know. He's at that bottom
He's
list.
at the bottom
There's
list.
only one name, and it's Steve Kerr. And do they think they can get him? I don't know. But he's up in 26. The Warriors dynasty is on their way out. Steph and Draymond are aging. Every coach you would think would want to coach Wemby, Fox, Castle, and whoever they get in the lottery. Steve has experience in San Antonio. He was Pop's guy, Team USA. He was an assistant. Pop handed Team USA basketball over to Steve. Steve is the golden boy and the number one choice by far. That I don't know that they can get him, but he makes similar money to what Pop makes. So I think that's the one and only name that I would say right now.
I mean, that all makes perfect sense, especially with the way the NBA seems to have a group of coaches, and they, like chess pieces, they just move from team to team. It seems to be a pretty select club when it comes to guys that get jobs and guys that get jobs out of nowhere. So I don't know. To me, I would stay the course. I mean, what a first year as being a head coach, albeit interim. All the dynamics, everything that's been in play, young team, superstar player, other really good players, trying to get them to mesh and mold and figure out what the rotations are. I mean, I don't know how you could have a baptism by fire any more than what Mitch has had to go through. And I would roll with him until otherwise noted.
To me, it looks like it's very similar to the Bill Belichick, Gerard Mayo situation out there in New England. It's like, okay, your coach leaves. You have this guy who you wanted to be the heir apparent, who does a good job. I'm not saying that Mitch is doing anywhere near the bad job that Gerard Mayo did, but you have this young coach that you want to bring in. You want to be the next great head coach, and then you have a bad year, and you bring in the guy who was probably the right guy all along.
Yeah,
in Mike Vrabel, or in
think,
Steve Kerr,
and
or in Mike Budenholzer, something like that.
I think some of this, though, I think there has to be a mindset, and I think there is within the organization, that they're trying to grow this team up along with Victor. So if you go get an established coach or somebody that's older, not like Mitch is a spring chicken by any stretch of the imagination, but by head coaching material he is. He's
literally half the age of Pop, so almost.
Right. So I think, in that regard, there's this quest to try to grow this organization up together and with some continuity. And, if you think that Mitch is going to be a great head coach now, tomorrow, a week from now, why not roll with this? I mean, again, this team is still markedly better than what it was a year ago. Maybe not a playoff team this year. That's still to be determined, but way better, infinitely better than it was a season ago. Easier to watch, all that.
I'm not taking anything away from Mitch. I think Chuck's right. They may think Mitch is going to be a great head coach. They may not. I don't know. But I know this. If you're the Spurs and you have Victor Wembanyama, it's your responsibility to get the most qualified, best coach in the world. Like when Texas whiffed on Nick Saban and went with Charlie Strong, right? Like I said, with the University of when you're the University of Texas, you have to get Schloss or whoever is the very best. And I think when you're the San Antonio Spurs and you have Victor Wembanyama, it's incumbent on you to get the very best. Now, here's the thing. And I think Steve Kerr is the best coach in the world, other than Pop. Here's the thing. The biggest issue, the biggest question of all, and the only thing that matters,
I know what you're going to say already,
is who does Victor want? And that's the first question Pop asks. Victor, what do you think? And whatever the kid says is what you do, right? Based on his preference.
Based on his years and years of front office experience.
No, but Pop will lay out a case for what the Spurs want to do, or what they, a couple of options. And I think Victor would trust whatever they say. But if Victor says, dang it, I want Mitch Johnson, he's my guy, then you go with Mitch Johnson, because this guy's going to be up in 4 years, and you can't. And that's why they're doing such a great job in communicating to him with doctors and everything through this blood clot. Papa apparently has been on the phone with him nonstop. Is you got to treat his family right. You got to do all these other things right, because the day you drafted him, you're thinking about re-signing him 5 years from now.
There's also the possibility. I think back to the Steve Kerr situation in Golden State. He took over for Mark Jackson, who couldn't get over the hump. There's a possibility that you let Mitch, try this out 2 years, 3 years. And then if you can't get past the second round of the playoffs, first round of the playoffs, whatever it is, it doesn't work, then you bring in that coach. And Wemby is still 24 years old, and you still have that ability to get the most out of him in his prime, but you also give a young coach a chance to become the next Gregg Popovich.
Yeah, it depends. It all depends on what we have our opinions on Mitch Johnson. The only thing that matters is what does Pop, RC, people like that think of Mitch.
Let me throw some names at you guys. A former Spurs assistants or people who've been connected to the organization. Mike Budenholzer. Was that a plausible name as the heir apparent to Gregg Popovich here in San Antonio?
Maybe.
I told you my list. It's one.
What about Becky Hammond?
Maybe.
I think that's a very Spursian hire.
I don't know that. I don't know. It depends on what her relationships are with Victor and other things. These people are going to be all qualified coaches, but we don't know. Like Bud's been away from the organization so long, right? That does he have like Chuck was saying, the connection with younger players? He's had issues. Like, I mean, he's not even talking to the big guy. Who's the Zubat? No. Vujicic? Who's the big guy in Phoenix? Nurkic. He's not even talking. They have no relationship. And that's been a big mess. So there's issues with Bud. There's issues with Becky, having never been a head coach in the NBA. There's going to be issues with a lot of these people.
What about Mike Brown or Monty Williams?
Again, love both guys, but both have had their issues when they've been let go.
Ime Udoka?
Great coach.
Lure him away from Houston?
Good luck with that.
I was going to say that would be my next, like 1A after or 1B after Steve Kerr. Ime, who has succeeded everywhere he's gone.
Great coach.
Great coach. Outside of the scandal in Boston, but he was still a successful coach while that was all going on. He took his team all the way to the finals.
Yeah.
So, and he would have been the head coach if that whole thing didn't go down. So, last name on the list that I put on here was Chip England.
No. Chip's a skills guy.
Hey, man, I was just throwing names out.
I mean, who doesn't like what Chip England brings to the table, right? But I think there's a reason why he's someplace else right now, and it was mutual.
I saw Chip on this new documentary, that Court of Gold with the Olympic team. I didn't realize Chip was on the staff of Steve and the Olympic guys. And he wasn't, they only listed Spoelstra, Mark Few, and Tyronn Lue as the assistants to Steve Kerr. But there's a support staff, and Chip England was there. And I started thinking, does Kevin Durant and Steph Curry really need a shooting coach?
Probably not.
What if they could lure Eric Spoelstra out of Miami?
Great coach.
Yeah.
He's two right behind Steve Kerr.
You have to aim high, right? If you can get Eric Spoelstra out of Miami with all the crap that's going on in Miami right now,
he's on that list of the guys you can't get, but that you have to ask.
To your point, it was like, why does Tiger Woods need a swing coach?
Yeah.
Right. Really? What are you going to tell Tiger Woods?
Tiger changed his swing like 8 times.
I know. Tiger was coachable, man.
Well, he was also a perfectionist who kept changing his swing, even though he was winning all these championships. He was like, I still don't have this down to a T. This isn't perfect, so I need to reinvent my entire swing. Very interesting guy.
Jay Wright, Bill Self.
Hey, Andrew's got a question.
Hi, Andrew.
He says, how different is the team's record right now with a healthy Pop?
5 games better.
5 games better. And second part of his question is, sorry, hold on a second. If he's not going to return, when does the team actually make a decision on a new coach?
When they decide to.
We don't know. Don't know a lot. They don't tell us anything.
Nobody knows.
The only people that know Pop's current situation are his family, him, and RC probably. And maybe Peter.
That's probably it.
That's probably right. Correct? I would venture to guess that even Brian probably doesn't know.
It's pretty buttoned up.
That's all we got for today on the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. Remember to download, rate, review, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, tell a friend, tell an enemy. We said it at the beginning, we'll say it now. The most important thing is Pop's health, and I want everyone to take that out of this conversation. That is first and foremost, but this is speculation that is going to go around no matter what. We'll see you on Thursday. A whole lot of Cowboys coverage from the NFL Combine. We'll see you then.